4 million years ago, on a continent of endless sky, one step altered the course of every future. The first to rise, the first to stand tall.
Hey everyone, welcome. Starting today, we're going to embark on a long journey together, discovering where we humans came from. Let me ask you something right off the bat. Where did humanity begin?
Africa. We learned that in school.
That's right, but here's the real question. Why Africa specifically? I mean, there's China, India, Europe, so many places on Earth. Why did humans evolve only in Africa?
Just luck of the draw?
Luck? No way. In a 3 million-year evolutionary story, there's no such thing as luck. Africa had something special, something unique. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly what that was. We'll explore why humanity could only have emerged in Africa, and why our ancestors who spread to other continents ultimately failed to evolve further. Ready? Let's dive in. Our story begins about 3 million years ago. 3 million BCE, to be precise. A time when the very idea of human didn't even exist yet. Back then, something incredible was happening in East Africa. The land was tearing apart.
Tearing apart?
Yes. The East African Rift System, EARS for short. This rift started forming around 15 million years ago, but it really kicked into gear about 10 million years ago. Mountains rose, valleys deepened, and the African continent literally began splitting in two.
What does that have to do with humans?
Everything. When the land rose, the climate completely changed. To the west, you had the humid Congo Basin, dense rainforest. But the east? Totally different. The rising mountains blocked the clouds, and rain stopped falling.
Rain shadow?
Exactly. That's the rain shadow effect. East of the mountains, things got drier and drier. Forests disappeared. In their place, grasslands spread out as far as the eye could see. But here's the kicker. This change wasn't steady. It kept swinging back and forth.
Back and forth?
Right. You see, Earth's orbit wobbles periodically. Every 20,000, 40,000, and 100,000 years, the way Earth circles the sun shifts just slightly. That changes how much seasonal sunlight different parts of the planet receive. In East Africa especially, these orbital shifts directly affected the monsoons, the summer rains blown in from the Indian Ocean. So you'd get periods of heavy rainfall alternating with brutal droughts. The result? Every 100,000 years or so, the environment would flip from jungle to savanna to near desert and back again. To survive in a place like that, you couldn't just be good at one thing. You had to be adaptable.
Wait, hold on. If Earth's orbit wobbles, wouldn't that affect everywhere, not just Africa? Why was Africa hit so hard?
Great question. You're right. Orbital wobbles affect the whole planet, but how much each region responds varies dramatically. East Africa was especially vulnerable because its rainfall depends almost entirely on one thing: the monsoon winds from the Indian Ocean. When Earth's orbit shifts, the amount of summer sunlight hitting the northern hemisphere changes slightly. That small difference disrupts atmospheric circulation over the Indian Ocean, which in turn causes massive swings in East African rainfall. So while Europe might see a slight temperature change, and Asia might experience some glacial advance or retreat, East Africa experienced something far more extreme, a complete flip between wet and dry. In other words, other regions saw gradual changes. East Africa's entire environment got turned upside down. That's why Africa experienced the most dramatic environmental swings when Earth's orbit wobbled.
What happened to the animals living there?
Exactly. This unpredictable environment became evolution's most powerful engine. Living in the trees and eating fruit, living on the savanna and grazing on grass, you couldn't specialize in just one. You had to do both. And since you never knew when things would change, Only the flexible survived. And then around 2.8 million years ago it happened. They appeared. Anyway, a jawbone was discovered in Ledi Geraru, Ethiopia. Carbon dating placed it between 2.8 and 2.75 million years ago, the oldest confirmed member of the genus Homo, our direct ancestors. This jawbone was different from Australopithecus. The teeth were smaller. The jaw was narrower.
Why? Aren't big teeth better?
Sure, if you're eating nuts and roots all day. But these guys started eating something different, meat.
How'd they hunt it?
They didn't. Not at first. They scavenged dead animals and cracked open the bones for marrow, rich, fatty, nutrient-dense marrow. But to get to the marrow, you need to break bones. So they picked up stones. At Lomekwi, Kenya, stone tools have been found dating to 3.3 million years ago. These are called Oldowan tools, basically sharp-edged rocks.
Just rocks?
No, worked rocks. They struck one stone against another to create a sharp edge. You know how incredible that is? Chimpanzees use stones to crack nuts, but they don't modify stones. Early humans began making tools to make tools. That's a cognitive leap. And here's the truly astonishing part. Some of these tool sites were used for 300,000 years, from 2.75 million to 2.44 million years ago. 300,000 years.
Why is that so amazing?
Because during those 300,000 years, the environment completely changed. At first, it was a lush floodplain with plenty of water and trees. Then, it gradually dried out into barren desert. Most animals, when their environment changes, either go extinct or migrate. But these early humans, they just stayed.
How?
Adaptation. When the environment changed, they changed what they ate and how they lived. Forests eat fruit. Grasslands scavenge carcasses for marrow. This flexibility was humanity's core survival strategy. At the same time, other human species existed in Africa. Paranthropus, for example, big jaws, massive teeth, specialized for grinding tough plant material. Various species of Australopithecus were around too.
What happened to them?
Extinct. All of them. Why? When the environment changed, they couldn't adapt. Paranthropus australopithecus was a grass and root specialist. When the savannas turned to desert, their food source vanished. Australopithecus was built for climbing trees. When the trees disappeared, game over. But Homo, they could make tools. They could eat meat. They could climb trees and walk on the ground. They were generalists, jack of all trades. And in Africa's brutal, unpredictable climate, being a generalist was the ultimate survival strategy.
But why did this only happen in Africa?
Now we're getting to the heart of it. The answer is simple. Nowhere else on Earth experienced such extreme environmental shifts. Let's compare. Around 1.8 million years ago, Homo erectus appeared. They were the first of our ancestors to leave Africa. Taller, longer legs, bigger brains. And they headed east into Asia.
Where exactly?
Georgia, a site called Dmanisi, where 1.85 million-year-old fossils have been found. From there, they kept moving east, all the way to Java, Indonesia, arriving around 1.49 million years ago. The Javan Homo erectus, often called Java man, survived until an astonishing 140,000 years ago.
Wow, that's a long run.
Yes, they lasted for 1.4 million years. Impressive, right? But here's the thing, they didn't evolve.
What?
Early Javan, Homo erectus fossils and late ones, almost identical. Their tools didn't improve much. Brain size stayed the same. Behavior barely changed. For 1.4 million years, they were basically frozen in time.
Why?
Because the environment was stable. Java, part of the Sundaland region, was tropical rainforest. Warm year-round, plenty of rain, abundant food. Since the environment didn't change much, there was no pressure to evolve. Africa? Totally different. Every 20,000, 40,000, 100,000 years, the climate swung wildly. Forest to grassland, to desert and back again. In that kind of environment, you can't just settle in. You have to keep finding new solutions.
Man, that must have been stressful.
Exactly. And that's why brains got bigger. What's coming next? Better prepare. The water dried up here? Find another source. That animal's gone? Eat something else. Constant problem solving. That's what drove brain expansion. Around 1 million years ago, humans began controlling fire. At Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, wooded ash has been found dating to 1 million years ago.
So they started cooking?
Not yet.
Who?
There's a gap of hundreds of thousands of years between controlling fire and cooking food.
So what did they use fire for?
Probably smoking meat. Think about it. You've somehow managed to kill an elephant. It weighs several tons.
No way you can eat all that.
Right. It'll rot in days. But if you smoke it over a fire, you can preserve it much longer. Plus, at night, fire keeps predators like hyenas and leopards away. That was probably the original use of fire. Much later, around 275,000 years ago, humans likely began cooking in earnest. We know this from genetic analysis.
Genetics?
Yes. Scientists fed mice either raw or cooked food and observed changes in gene expression in their livers. Then they looked for those same genes in the human genome and found evidence of positive selection. In other words, humans evolved genes optimized for eating cooked food. This change happened at least 275,000 years ago, before we split from Neanderthals.
Why does cooking matter so much?
Energy. Raw food is hard to digest, fibrous, tough, time-consuming to chew. Chimps spend 6 hours a day just chewing, and they barely get enough calories. But cooked food? Much easier to digest. Nutrient absorption skyrockets. You get more calories in less time. And here's why that matters. Brains are energy hogs. A chimp's brain uses 8% of its basal metabolic rate. A human brain, 20%.
2.5 times more.
Exactly. Without cooking, we couldn't sustain such large brains. Cooking wasn't just culture. It was a biological necessity for human evolution. Between 350,000 and 300,000 years ago, past Homo sapiens finally appeared. Us.
Where?
All over Africa. Fossils from Jebel Irhoud, Morocco, 350,000 years old. Homo kibish, Ethiopia, 195,000 years old. Southern, eastern, northern Africa. Everywhere.
So we evolved in multiple places at once?
Yes. We didn't suddenly appear in one spot. Multiple populations across Africa became isolated during dry periods, then reconnected and interbred during wetter times. This gradual, continent-wide process is called the Pan-African Origin Model. Genetic evidence supports this. African populations have the highest genetic diversity in the world.
Why does diversity matter?
High genetic diversity means a large population sustained over a long time. Small populations lose genetic variation, but Africa had large, ancient, diverse populations. It's proof that all humanity originated here. There's even evidence of ghost populations, ancient human groups we've never found fossils of, but whose DNA survives in West Africans today. They interbred with some unknown archaic human, just like we mixed with Neanderthals.
Who were they?
We don't know. Maybe Homo erectus. Maybe a species we haven't named yet. But the point is clear. Modern humans emerged from multiple African populations, mixing and merging over hundreds of thousands of years. So let's recap. Why did humanity evolve in Africa? First, extreme environmental change. Unpredictable climate selected for flexible, adaptable species. Second, tools and technology. From Oldowan stone tools to controlled fire, technology acted as insurance against environmental chaos. Third, cooking. Cooked food created an energy revolution, enabling larger brains. Fourth, genetic exchange. Populations across Africa repeatedly isolated and reconnected, building both diversity and adaptability.
What about Homo erectus in Asia?
Stable environment, no pressure to evolve. Eventually went extinct without evolving into modern humans. Only Africa kept pushing humanity, challenging humanity.
So suffering leads to progress.
Exactly. Comfort doesn't drive change. Discomfort does. For 3 million years, humanity was relentlessly challenged. And that's why we're here today.
When did we leave Africa?
Great question. Homo sapiens left Africa in a major wave between 70,000 and 50,000 years ago, spreading across the entire world. But that's a story for another time. For today, just remember this. Humanity was born because of Africa's harsh, unforgiving environment.
Hardship builds character, I guess.
Yeah, 3 million years worth. Next time, we'll cover the single most important event in human evolution, the revolution of bipedalism, walking on 2 legs.
Bipedalism?
Yes, walking upright. I'll explain why it was so crucial, and why without it, we wouldn't be nearly as intelligent as we are today. That's right. Next episode, you'll discover just how difficult and revolutionary standing on 2 legs really was. Because our ancestors standing upright wasn't just a physical change. It was an answer to a problem the environment threw at them. Tonight, grab a beer, maybe some fried chicken, and think about this. For 3 million years, humans adapted to an ever-changing world. In the end, what made us human wasn't the environment itself, it was the endless problem the environment posed. Today, we face new massive challenges: climate crisis, wars, economic instability, the AI revolution. But we know this. We are a species that doesn't run from problems. We solve them. We evolve through them. The proof? Our history, ourselves. No matter how unstable our times feel, humanity will do what it's always done: find answers. And if you figure one out before I do, let me know.